You're kneeling on damp earth at dawn, wrists bound so tightly the rope fibers burn against skin already numb from cold. Salt wind cuts through your wool robe, still heavy with sea spray, and every breath tastes of brine and iron. Your name is Ælfric of Lindisfarne, and only days ago you believed surrender meant survival. You believed men who spoke of ransom and negotiation. You believed mercy still existed between victors and captives. You were told ransom was possible. You were never told ceremony required witnesses. You were never told pain could be made sacred. And you were never told survival could be postponed on purpose. A ring of Norse warriors gathers around you, boots sinking slightly into wet grass. Iron helmets catch the first pale light flashing dully as heads turn. Their breath steams in the cold. Cloaks snap in the wind. Somewhere behind you a raven cries, sharp and impatient. The sound makes your stomach hollow. A chieftain steps forward, heavy with authority. His voice carries easily over the wind as he recites a line attributed to an old skald, words spoken not to you, but to the crowd. The eagle feeds where oaths are broken. The men murmur approval, shields shift. Someone laughs softly. You realize this moment has been rehearsed. Nearby, a fragment from the Orkneyinga saga will one day record only that the rite was performed. The words will sit quietly on a page, clean and distant. They will not record how your heart begins to race when a curved blade is lifted from a cloth at the chieftain's feet. They will not record the way the crowd leans closer, hungry for detail. They will not record the smell of wet leather, cold iron, and fear sharp enough to feel metallic on the tongue. You try to steady your breathing, in, out. Your knees tremble despite your effort to remain still. Hands grip your shoulders, not rough, not gentle, precise. They need you upright. They need you aware. You finally understand this is not punishment alone. Punishment would be quick. This is theater. Every movement is measured. Every pause is intentional. Children are lifted onto shoulders for a better view. Elders stand at the edge of the ring, watching without expression. This is meant to be remembered. You search faces for mercy and find only attention. The chieftain circles behind you. You feel his presence before you hear him. The air seems to tighten. Your pulse thunders in your ears, louder than the wind, louder than the sea below the cliffs. You realize then why they needed you alive at the start. The ritual requires anticipation. It requires endurance. It requires an audience that can see fear before anything else. And as the blade glints once more in the thin morning light, you understand this moment is only the beginning of what they intend to show. Ælfric is pulled upright so suddenly the world tilts, damp earth peeling away from his knees with a wet sound. Cold air rushes into his lungs. You're forced to face the ring now. Shields locked together, wood scarred and iron banded, their painted reds dulled by smoke and salt. They form a wall not to protect you but to frame you. Drums begin to beat, slow, heavy, echoing off the cliffs behind, each strike syncing perfectly with the pulse hammering in your throat. You smell tar and wet leather, old blood, rust. The scent of the sea never leaves, sharp and clean, clashing cruelly with everything else. Hands grip your shoulders again. They are steady, almost respectful. No one is in a hurry. That's when you realize time itself has been slowed on purpose. A runestone inscription from Stora hammers will survive centuries, carved with a bound figure surrounded by armed men. Scholars will argue about its meaning. None of them will feel what you feel now, the weight of eyes, the pressure of expectation. Fear preserved in stone. You search faces for mercy. You find none, only attention. Children are lifted onto shoulders so they can see better. Elders stand at the edge of the ring, nodding in approval, murmuring softly. Cloaks shift. Metal creaks. Somewhere someone coughs and the sound feels wrong, intrusive, quickly swallowed by silence. This is meant to be remembered, not just by you, by them. You understand then that silence is part of the ritual. Screams would break the order they believe the gods demand. Chaos would offend. Your fear must be controlled, curated. You swallow hard, throat tight, jaw clenched until it aches. Your hands tremble despite yourself, ropes biting deeper with every movement. The drums stop. The sudden quiet is worse. Wind moves through the circle, tugging at hair, rattling shield rims. You hear your own breathing, ragged and too loud. A warrior steps closer, eyes unreadable, adjusting his grip so you remain upright. Conscious, present. You finally understand this gathering is not about killing you quickly. It's about watching you last. As the circle tightens, bodies closing in by inches, you sense this moment is only preparation. A drawing of breath before something far more deliberate. And whatever they intend to reveal next, they need you standing when it begins. The blade is not rushed. That's the first thing you notice. It catches the pale light for a heartbeat, a thin curve of iron, then slips back into shadow as the chieftain steps behind you. You feel his breath at your neck, warm against skin gone cold, and hear whispers, prayers, promises, never meant for you. The air tastes metallic. Your stomach knots so tightly it feels hollow. Your knees tremble, hands clamp down harder, forcing stillness. Posture matters even now, especially now. Somewhere far from this cliff, a law code attributed to the Gulating Assembly will later justify ritual killings as offerings. Clean words, orderly logic. They will never explain how terror sharpens every sense, how the scrape of a boot on stone sounds like thunder, how every breath feels borrowed. Pain is threatened more than delivered, drawn out, stretched thin through anticipation. The crowd murmurs approval not at cruelty but at restraint. This is control. This is discipline. You understand then that honor is being performed for them, not granted to you. The chieftain's presence shifts. You hear the faint whisper of metal moving through air, not striking, testing distance. Your heart slams against your ribs so loud you're certain others can hear it. You fix your eyes on the horizon, the gray line where sea meets sky, because looking anywhere else feels impossible. When the first movement begins, it is careful, deliberate, measured to keep you aware of every second passing, not enough to end anything, enough to begin. You bite down hard, jaw shaking, refusing the sound rising in your chest. The warriors lean in, attentive, witnesses to endurance. This is not about blood yet. It's about how long you can remain yourself. And in that suspended moment, breath held, body braced, you realize the ritual depends on endurance more than pain, on consciousness more than death. They have only begun to test yours. Time stops behaving the way you remember. It stretches, thins, loses meaning. You focus on breathing because it's the only thing left that still belongs to you. In, out, slow enough to stay conscious. The sea crashes far below the cliff, relentless and indifferent, each wave a reminder that the world will keep moving no matter what happens here. Smoke drifts from a nearby fire, gray and oily, stinging your eyes and coating your tongue with bitterness. You taste ash when you swallow. The wind shifts, carrying heat across your skin, then cold again. Warriors begin to chant softly. Not words, numbers, a rhythm. They're counting something, and you realize too late that it's you. A skaldic verse preserved in later manuscripts will one day praise those who gave lungs to the eagle. A metaphor that survives far longer than any body ever could. The verse will sound poetic, honorable. It will never describe the way instinct fights discipline, the way your chest burns as every breath becomes work. Hands hold you upright, firm, unyielding, not cruel, efficient. Collapse would end the rite too soon, and that cannot be allowed. Your legs shake violently now, muscles screaming, but they keep you standing, conscious, present. You finally understand that survival has become part of the spectacle. Each breath you take prolongs the moment. Each second you remain upright feeds their belief that endurance proves worthiness, strength, favor. The chant grows louder, echoing off stone and shield rims, rolling through your skull until it feels like it's inside you rather than around you. Your vision narrows. The world tunnels down to sound and pressure and the scrape of boots on rock. You count waves instead of breaths, anything to anchor yourself. Somewhere in the circle, a child laughs, quickly silenced. Somewhere else, an elder murmurs approval. The chant slows. You feel the pause before anyone else does, a collective intake of breath from the crowd. They are waiting, watching, expecting something specific, a sign, a failure, a surrender. You don't yet know what will satisfy them. And that uncertainty presses down harder than any hand ever could, because you realize the measure is no longer what they do to you. It's how long you can deny them the ending they want. You feel the shift before anyone speaks. Attention lifts almost physically as faces tilt upward toward the sky, toward imagined watchers beyond cloud and raven. The wind rises suddenly, flapping cloaks, snapping loose straps, carrying the sharp smell of iron and ash across the circle. It feels staged, chosen. A monastery chronicle from York will later condemn this moment as pagan savagery, recording only that the captive endured longer than expected. It will never mention the choice forced upon you now, the one no one announces out loud. To cry out would break the offering. To remain silent would complete it. Fear and defiance collide inside your chest, sending your heart racing so hard it makes you dizzy. Your mouth opens on instinct, a sound rising unbidden, but you stop it. Clamp down. Bite until you taste blood. Your jaw trembles violently as you steady yourself, fixing your gaze on the horizon where sea meets sky, a thin gray line that refuses to move. You were told surrender meant survival. You were never told survival could be used against you. The crowd senses the decision. You feel it ripple outward, a tightening of bodies, a collective held breath. Drums do not sound. No one moves. This stillness is deliberate, sacred. They believe the gods are listening now. You stand there shaking, lungs burning, refusing to give them the sound they seek. Every breath hurts. Every second stretches impossibly long. You are no longer just a man to them. You are proof or failure. A warrior murmurs something you cannot hear. The chieftain shifts his weight behind you, presence heavy and patient. No one rushes this moment. They never intended to. This is the turning point they wanted, the instant where endurance becomes meaning. You realize then that whatever happens next will define how this story is told. If you break, they will say the gods rejected you. If you endure, they will say the gods were pleased. Either way, your voice is no longer yours to use freely. The wind howls louder, carrying the cries of seabirds overhead. Cloaks snap like banners. Somewhere, someone raises their arms skyward, inviting something unseen to witness what comes next. And as the silence stretches to its breaking point, you understand this ritual no longer belongs to the men around you. It belongs to the story they will tell after. And it is not finished with you yet. When the ritual ends, it does not end loudly. There is no final cry, no sudden release. It dissolves instead. The circle loosens. Shields lower, voices drop. The crowd disperses with practiced calm, as if everyone knows exactly when belief has been satisfied. You are left in the trampled grass. Your vision swims, the world tilting in slow, sickening waves. The sky feels too wide. Your ears ring with echoes that refuse to fade, drums that have stopped, chants that no longer exist, the imagined sound of your own breath still fighting for space. Cold seeps upward from the earth into your back, damp and unforgiving. Ravens circle above, patient, watching, they do not hurry. A burial mound excavation at Repton, centuries from now, will reveal cut marks that scholars debate endlessly. Ritual or execution, symbol or brutality. The bones will be catalogued carefully, measured, photographed, discussed. No names will be attached, no fear recorded, no memory of how the grass felt beneath your fingers. Your body is no longer the focus now. Meaning is. Men speak in low voices nearby, tones reverent rather than excited. They argue quietly about omens, about favor earned or denied. Someone gestures toward the sky. Someone else nods. Your endurance has already begun to change shape, transforming into a lesson, a sign, a warning meant for others. You are lifted eventually, not celebrated, not mourned, simply removed. Arms slide beneath you, efficient and impersonal. Your limbs feel distant as if they belong to someone else. Pain recedes into numbness, replaced by a strange clarity that sharpens every thought. You notice small things, the scrape of boots, the smell of wet wool, the way the wind feels suddenly colder without the crowd around you. You finally understand what this was never about. It was not death alone, it was memory. It was about teaching those who watched what power looks like when it wears ritual as armor, about proving belief through spectacle, about ensuring the story would be stronger than the man it consumed. As you are carried away from the cliff, ravens still circling above, darkness presses at the edges of your vision. Not yet total, just close, heavy, waiting. You wonder, in that narrowing space between breath and silence, what version of this moment will survive? Will they remember your stillness as strength or submission? Will they speak of honor or obedience? Will your name vanish while the act endures? The answers slip further from reach as the world dims. But the story has already begun to live without you. Ælfric does not live to hear the story retold. But the story lives on without him. It moves faster once the body is gone. Stories always do. Freed from breath and pain and consequence, they grow wings. Sagas carry it from hearth to hall, from coast to inland farmsteads. Each telling sharpens something and dulls something else. Details harden where they should blur. Other parts soften, smoothed down so they fit belief more easily. The man disappears first. His name fades. The image remains. Stone remembers differently than flesh ever could. Carvings simplify what bodies complicate. A bound figure, spread ribs, watching men. Clean lines where there was chaos, stillness where there was trembling. Over time, the blood eagle becomes less an event and more a symbol. Not a moment that happened, but an idea that explains power. Its edges are exaggerated by some, denied by others, reshaped by whoever needs it most. Centuries later, a modern excavation report from Stora Hammers will describe imagery, posture, tools. The language will be careful, conditional, may represent, possibly ritualized. Diagrams will sit behind glass, neatly labeled, lit from above. Visitors will lean in, reading silently. No one will smell smoke. No one will hear waves crashing below a cliff. No one will feel the weight of eyes closing in. The report will never mention breath. It will never mention silence. It will never mention the way belief settles into a crowd like fog, thick enough to choke reason. We stand now at a distance, safe, curious. We call it ritual, or myth, or exaggeration. We argue about feasibility, about anatomy, about whether bodies could endure what the stories claim. We debate sources. We debate bias. We debate translation. We ask how accurate the carvings are, how reliable the sagas, how literal the words were meant to be. We rarely ask why people needed to believe it did. The blood eagle endures because it speaks to something uncomfortable that refuses to stay buried. Fear braided with power, violence transformed into meaning, pain elevated into proof. It tells us that belief does not simply exist on its own. Belief demands evidence, and when evidence does not exist, it is sometimes created. Witnessed suffering becomes instruction. It teaches those watching where power lives, who controls it, what happens when it is challenged. It turns fear into order, chaos into ceremony. The act itself matters less than the lesson it leaves behind. The fire is gone. The witnesses are gone. The ravens have long since flown. What remains is the echo. We feel it when we slow down at roadside memorials, when crowds gather around tragedy, when images of suffering spread faster than understanding, when we tell ourselves we are only watching to learn, to remember, to make sense of it. We like to believe we are different now, more distant, more rational, less cruel. But we still gather around stories like this one. We still lean closer. We still feel the pull of spectacle wrapped in history, safe because it happened to someone else long ago. We say we are examining it, studying it, debating it. Yet something quieter happens beneath that language. Attention is given. The story is fed. The image survives. And maybe that is why the eagle never truly disappeared. It was never only about what they did to one man on a cliff. It was about what they needed to see to believe their world made sense, about how far power could go when wrapped in gods and tradition, about how suffering, when framed correctly, becomes acceptable, even necessary. The question lingers because it is not really about them. Did the ritual shape belief? Or did belief demand a ritual this extreme? And what does it say about us that, centuries later, we still cannot look away?